Hey, it's Keith from Outlaw Speed Shop, and welcome to this episode. It's a mashup of a Nomad and a Boneshaker. This was presented on the Diecast Renegades and Hoodlums page by Berger, and I thought it was kind of a cool challenge. So I like stuff like this, so I was up for it. As always, if you like the content, make sure to subscribe and don't forget to ring the bell. So this was one of those challenges where, I looked at it and I kind of hemmed and hawed. I didn't reply right away. And after a while, I was just like, you know what? This sounds kind of like fun. I needed a break from all the crap that's going on. And I was in the middle of some builds that I really didn't feel like doing. So I thought it was a great break. So I happened to have actually a plethora of bone shakers. I only had a couple Nomads, so I took this orange one with the flames, which I thought was kind of cool if it wasn't for the god-awful wheels. So at this stage, I've got no idea what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it, which if you watch any of my videos, that's pretty much how I approach 90% of my projects. But this one, I mean, I've done quite a few bone shakers, and I have a love-hate relationship with them. And I just never know exactly what to do and how to do it. And the fact that I get to mash it with a Nomad was intriguing. But at this stage, it's like, what am I going to do? I don't want it to look too much like a bone shaker, but I've got to mate the two together somehow and still make it look, at least in my opinion, somewhat cool. So at this point, I'm just taking everything apart. And I know I'm going to have to cut stuff up regardless of what I do. So I have an idea at this point, and I'm not sure if it's going to work. So no matter what, because I do have an extra Nomad kicking around, I figured I would start cutting out the hood on this one, because the idea I'm thinking of, a little out there, but it might work. So I ended up cutting the entire hood off, including the panel in front between the hood and the windshield. So, because I want to keep the interior, I cut off the front. And again, this is a lot of cutting, a lot of trial and error. So because, again, of what I'm thinking of, I want to use the front half of the bone shaker. And it just snaps right off like that. Pretty simple. But I don't need the steering wheel or the dashboard. So I'm going to cut that off. And because of the pipes and the way they are, I couldn't use my cutoff disc, which I used for most of this project. So the jeweler's saw was the ticket in that case. I don't like cutting plastic with it, but it works great. Then I can use my cutoff wheel to just kind of grind it down flat and get a nice clean surface, which is what I was after. So, starting to get an idea what I'm after here. And again, it's a lot of fitting and trying and fitting and then hemming and hawing and deciding whether, how stupid it's going to look, or, again, everything is subjective. Something I like, you guys probably hate, and vice versa. It is what it is. But I do this a lot. I'll just keep trying different things. So here I am. I still have the original Nomad chassis. I have an idea to maybe stick the skull on the grill assembly for the Nomad. So I'm going to just cut it off. Again, I know I've got spare cars, so if I screw it up, I'm not overly concerned, hence my lack of hesitation to just cut stuff. But I was thinking about, at that point, doing that, but this engine is difficult, just with the angle of the pipes and how it sits and where it sits. So you can kind of see it's starting to come together, at least the theory of what it is I'm trying to do. It worked out good. Both have plastic bases. The Nomad had side pipes, which looked kind of silly, knowing I was going to have straight pipes coming off the engine block. So back out with the cutoff wheel and cut those off directly, because we don't need two sets of exhausts, at least not that way. So cutoff wheels are good. I mean, it does leave a little bit of little dingleberries on there you got to kind of cut off, but just from the plastic melting. So now that I know that that works okay, I'm still torn on what to do with this engine because it doesn't fit. The wheel wells themselves are too small. The frame itself is bumped up in that area, preventing the engine from actually sitting flush. So I'm going to cut that off so that the motor at least has a chance to sit flush, so I can see where it's going to sit. This whole aspect of trial and error, to me, I actually find rather enjoyable. I mean, it can be frustrating, but at the same time, I guess not really giving a crap. It helps because I honestly, I don't care. If I screw it up, I screw it up. I'll either work with what I have, or I'll grab another casting, or I'll abandon the project completely if I don't have anything else. That's the great part about not really caring. So I do know I need to extend out just a little bit on one side, the fender wells on the front. So you can see here, I'm kind of marking it off with a Sharpie. I'm taking maybe a 16th. So now you can kind of see how they fit. Now I'm kind of playing around with the Boneshaker chassis. The motor fits perfectly in there, so why mess with a good thing? So I kind of measured off where it was going to fit, and it worked out rather well, because what I'm going to do is extend this whole thing out. So I'm going to cut the nose of the 55 Nomad chassis, and then I'm going to cut the rear off of the Boneshaker chassis. And because of the width of the Nomad, it actually works out really well. So in the past, I've tried to mate up two chassis, and it just turned into a shit show. So I found that this is going to work perfectly because I'm creating like a little tab, and because of the rake that I'm looking for and how low I want this to sit, I can actually, you'll see, I'll actually be able to mate the two chassis together, but have a nice hard surface there to mount to. And it actually works really, really well, and gives me the stance that I'm looking for at the same time. So sometimes you get lucky. In this case, I happen to, but it was one of those things. The more you look at it, it's not something that was obvious to me at first, but the more I cut things apart, the more it kind of came together. So you can see how it almost fits in there. I just need to shorten it up a little bit, the width, and then I can take a little bit off the Nomad chassis, and it mates up perfectly. So, and it gives me the right overall length of the chassis that I'm looking for. I know I'm talking a lot. I apologize. I tend to ramble on a little bit, but that's just me. But you can see right here, once I've trimmed it all down, it just snaps in perfectly, and all I got to do is just cut the groove just a little bit more, because the Nomad had a little bumped up on the frame. So it works out perfectly, and it just snaps right in there. So you can see there, it's glued together. Now the only thing is the wheels that I have for the back are off. I believe they're a 55 gasser, the raised white lettered ones. They're really wide. So because of the Nomad, the way the rear fenders are, I've got to narrow the rear end a little bit. So I'm just taking a little bit off the inside and narrowing the rear end. And I have a smaller cutoff wheel that surprisingly hasn't broken yet, but the radius is smaller, allows me to get in there. Never throw those things away. If it still has beef on it, keep it. So you can see here, I'm just kind of trimming away little by little, and that allows the wheels, once they're in there, to sit on the inside of the fenders, and I don't have to cut anything. Again, I'm still in the mock-up phase. It's just a lot of trial and error. I think I narrowed it twice. I tried to not cut too much, and then I needed to narrow it up just a little bit more. So you can always take more off, but sometimes if you go too far, you're screwed. So you can kind of see where I'm heading now, with the nose sticking out further. And again, this may not be for everybody. I totally get that. I thought it was cool in the end. But you can see here I'm kind of playing around with the wheels. How much further do I need to go in? Will it roll? So I matte blacked the entire chassis. I've got the front wheels snapped in. Now, because I had cut the skull off to fit the motor in, I'm going to glue the skull back on because I need to have some semblance. This is a mashup of both vehicles. And as much as I'm not a huge fan of the skull, I think it works in this case. But again, personal preference. The gas tank that was part of the Boneshaker, I'm going to cut that off. And then I'm going to stick that in the back behind the rear seat. Again, trying to keep elements of both vehicles and not just glue stuff on for the sake of gluing stuff on. It has a practicality with a narrowed rear end, or tubbed, I guess you could say. You'd have to move the gas tank anyways and either have a square aluminum gas tank in the back or do something. So this kind of matches and fits the motif of what I'm after. So after trimming it down and everything else, obviously, with the narrowed rear end, I need to narrow the interior, or at least the back part of it, which is pretty simple because it's already got guidelines for where I needed to cut because of the molded fender wells. And I know everybody's watching to see if one of these days I'm going to cut something off that's not supposed to come off, like a limb. I know I should be using a vise, so if you're under the age of 14, which you shouldn't be watching this anyways, and you need to stop right now and stop touching yourself. You should be using a vise. It's common sense. I don't have any, so don't go by me. Do as I say, not as I do. So I'm going to glue it in. It fits perfectly width-wise, which again, just kind of happy coincidence. You can see right there. And by the way, I hope everybody's doing well during this pandemic that we're under. Hopefully you guys are staying safe. So I made an executive decision to keep the paint. I wasn't going to strip it and repaint it. Now that it was all hacked up, I kind of liked it. So I have this Citadel Troll Slayer Orange, which matched perfectly. So from when I had to cut the hood out, obviously the die cast was bare on the inside. So instead of painting it black, which really wouldn't have looked all that great, I did it in 2 coats, the Troll Slayer Orange there, and then also on the inner wheel wells. And because I just painted the entire chassis black, I'm going to use my Moltoff pen to do the chrome bumper, which is the only thing chrome on the rear part of it. Since I got rid of that front bumper and front grille and replaced it with the skull, that's really just about it. So for the skull, because it's just plain chrome, I'm going to use my Citadel, Aberlin Sunset, or Jello for the marker lights on the sides of the skull. Then I was going to use this red. Then I decided, screw it, I'm just going to use my my Sharpie because it's got more of a translucent look for the actual, I guess you'd call them headlights, for the eyes of the skull. So that's what I'm doing there. And then I painted the engine orange there. I'm not showing you everything because I'm sure you're already getting bored. But I painted the engine orange. I capped off the front and the back with some styrene. And then I painted the carbs. Did a little bit of detail work here and there. You can kind of see everything. I painted the dash orange because most of the dashes were steel and they matched the color of the car. And that's pretty much it. I did the tail lights, headlights, even though you're not going to see the headlights. Stupid things like that. And I'm ready to go. And you can see the spare parts in the back that I did not use. So as always, the Wicked Pissa Jar. I started this at 12,000 subscribers. I'm at 13.5. When I hit 14,000, I'm going to be giving the contents away to 1 subscriber. You got to be a subscriber to qualify. And as I scroll through all the different vehicles I've added to this point, this week we have 2. We got 1 that I'm throwing in, and then I had somebody donate something, which worked out even better. So you guys get two for the price of 1 this week. You see I got a lot of real riders and some decent stuff going in. So I'm adding the Zamac Camaro, and thanks to Diecast Overhaul, make sure you check him out on YouTube. He donated this ID mystery machine. This is what I ended up with. Again, this may not be everybody's cup of tea. I think it came out awesome. I'm glad I left the paint. I just think it looks funky. And I hope you guys like it. Stick around. I got a ton of pictures, a ton of video. If you guys make sure to comment down below your thoughts. If you'd like to see more mashups like this, I know I'd love to do them. So thanks for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.